Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next webinar. I'll be telling you a bit more about getting a grip on technology expenses today. So let me start up the slides here. All right. This will be taking around 45 to 50 minutes. So let me know if you have any questions. We have some people stand by on the questions. All right. Ready to go. So I'll start off with a bit of an introduction on who Conway is and what we're doing. And then I'll go into the content of the presentation today. So a bit about ourselves, why companies work with us. I think the shortest pitch I could give is that we help companies, consumer and retail brands, to stop worrying about their e-commerce tech. And we do this by getting all digital capabilities in place so your team can deliver on your growth ambitions. Stress-free technology, that's the goal. We're a boutique consultancy for consumer retail brands that seek digital success, and our areas of expertise are strategy, technology, and analytics. Important thing that we believe and that what we've learned from practice is that a scalable company operates as a system with technology as its backbone, and that's also the topic for today. Our experience is as digital executives at leading omnichannel brands, and we've consulted 50 companies so far as Conway itself. One of the main things that we encounter is what you see here on the left. Often it's chaos. So the technology stack is a mess. There's a spaghetti code base. All these different systems are not integrated or speaking to each other. There's a lot of frustration within the technology department often. And our goal is to get it to a confident level. So what we basically do is use technology as the infrastructure for your growth ambitions. And the main thing that we deliver is an integrated technology stack that operates based on an operating model. And I'll discuss that a bit more today as well. And this enables you to sell online and offline. And it fuels all your teams with the insights that they need to do their job. Our clients are mainly investors and executives and digital leaders of consumer retail brands. We often work with companies that have a revenue between somewhere to 20 to 200 million. And a great example of one of those is Pink Jelak. They're a Dutch brand. They sell nail polish. They started online, but they are really rapidly expanding offline now as well. So that's about us. So back to the webinar. The main goal for me today is to tell you how to get a grip on our technology expenses. Technology serves a very important purpose in the digital age, but it can get out of hand in terms of IT spending. So I would love to share some insights on that. I think an important statement to make is that when we speak to investors, they often see money as the fuel for growth. Well, if that's the case, then technology basically is the engine for growth because it provides the infrastructure to do so. And if you do that well, it also provides you with operational excellence. 6 main topics you will learn today in this webinar. I think one of the most important ones is how to deal with the growing dependency that you have on technology. By origin, many retail companies don't have a technology background, so that is often quite challenging for them. But I'll also tell you a bit more about the opportunity. So, what type of digital opportunities are there to create new revenue streams? And a very important part of that is how to calculate the total cost of technology ownership. Based on that, we'll also share some insights and ideas how to save some cost on your technology stack as well. And a very important part is how to align your business strategy to digital capabilities that actually you need to execute on that. And the final part is also how to make buy or build decisions for the software in your technology stack. As mentioned earlier, we strongly believe that a scalable company operates as a system. And for that, we use this operating model. It's basically like a blueprint for a building, but then it explains how a company actually works. So it breaks it down to different components. And for today, I'll be focusing on these two. So mainly on strategy and technology and how to bridge those two. And that enables you to get a grip on the expenses. Well, first, to give a bit of context, I think one of the key challenges that you'll probably recognize as well is the challenge of how to deliver on your commercial success, right? So what we've seen in the digital age, it's fairly impossible to really deliver commercial success without the right data, assets, insights, and the technology stack that supports all your operations. So if that's the case, how do you actually control the cost? Because you really business depends on it. You can't really do without it, but the cost can really get out of hand as well. And this dependency is something that's often a bit overlooked. Technology is seen as something that is done by some nerds in the basement. Well, that's fine. However, what we've seen is that the importance is really becoming of strategic level. So many companies already experience this, that if your software fails, money stops coming in basically, and then really panic breaks out. So we often see technology as the digital backbone. And to give that even a bit more context, the digital age is really ramping up, right? So far in 2023, e-commerce sales will grow to 6.3 billion worldwide. Well, venture capital is really getting behind it with big investments. You see that the worldwide population has growing access to the internet. And I think a very important part of that internet access is the smartphone usage, which is going really fast as well. And in that sense, I don't really see becoming the dependency less, only more. So that's the reason though why we strongly believe that you need to take this seriously. One problem that we've encountered a lot, and that's also that visual I showed you, is that many technology stacks are very bloated or misconfigured. So there's a lot of spending. So it's not about it's not about the amount of money that goes in. It's mainly that the decisions are being made by people who don't really know what they're doing. Most executives struggle with technology because they're trained for different things, like a CFO or CMO or even the CEO. They're very smart people, but they have a different background, and therefore the decisions are made by the wrong people often. And that leads to a lot of unnecessary expenses. The frustration comes from unfamiliar language that the technology people are using, all these different opinions going on. One vendor says this, the other says that, resulting in very high costs. And therefore, sort of the complexity that technology and software brings, they block many strategic initiatives that executives have, and therefore they just check out basically. Well, an interesting metric to take into account is the level of IT spending. So Gartner is very well renowned research company. They do a lot of research into IT and technology. And one metric that they shared in this report is that they expect an 8% increase from a very substantial amount of investment already in 2023, amounting to 5.1 trillion. So that's 5,000 billion in that sense. So it's a massive thing. Well, apart from the negative side of this, there's obviously a very positive side as well. So I first wanted to tell you a bit more about the actual opportunity that technology presents. We strongly believe that technology itself is never the goal, but it serves the infrastructure for your business operations and also to deliver on your growth ambitions. And what I'll share is the sort of a framework that we often use that will help you discover new opportunities for scalable revenue streams across commerce, so selling things, content, creating and storyline of things, but also your customer community. And if you do this well, it basically brings a flywheel, and I'll share that with three tangible examples how other companies are doing that. An important part of that is that what we've seen is that in the digital age, there are basically just two types of companies. So what we label as a software company is a company that actually makes software and sells software. And I would say content is quite similar to that as well. And a great example here is Netflix, for example. They have a fully digital product, so a digital content streaming service. And it's also fully delivered via a digital channel, namely the web or web browser. So you either buy a digital product, but you also buy it via a digital channel. So that's what we consider a software company. The other definition of a software-driven company is more a company like an e-commerce-driven company, right? So they have a physical product, but they sell it via a digital channel. So companies that make a physical product but sell it via scalable digital channels. An example here is Nike. And if you plot that on a grid, you basically have four different quadrants, right? So on the sales channel, you have physical and digital sales channels. And for the actual commerce part, so the things that they sell, there's also a physical and a digital component. And I would say top right is the most scalable with the highest margins. However, that's not the full extent of the economy, right? So how we label this is for economics in the digital age. If you start in the bottom left, that's basically the classical way of looking at economics, right? Physical products delivered in a physical channel. So a restaurant, for example, or a classic bookstore. One other part, top left, is the part, for example, with an insurance, right? So that's nowadays it's a fully digital product, so it's somewhere that it's stored in a database, basically. However, often it's still sold via a physical channel, like an insurance agent coming to your company office, for example. Another classic example there would be travel agencies, but I think everybody would agree that those have been almost fully taken over now. Then on the top right part, software companies, which you already mentioned. An example there on the content side would be Netflix. On the software side would be Microsoft, right? So they fully sell their apps and their applications. All the software and the code that they sell is fully distributed in a digital way. So no more DVDs in the box, but everything is sold via subscription via their website, for example, or via an app store. Bottom right are software-driven companies. So another example I already gave is Nike. They sell shoes via their website, so that's an e-commerce part of their business. But also marketplaces like Amazon, right? So physical books or other physical products that they offer via their marketplace. So those are the 4 different quadrants that we differentiate. I think a very important key message I would like to relay here is that the technology stack that you need to basically deliver this type of business, if it's well integrated, managed, and maintained, the cost of that will flatten out, and that's where sort of much of the scalability comes from. And I'll explain that a bit more in the next visual. And if you do that well, and that's something we often encounter, you don't really need full rebuild if it is well maintained. However, the case is that it often is not, right? So it is managed in the wrong way. There's vendors coming in, coming out. There's a lot of different stakeholders. In that sense, you get the spaghetti code in the visual I showed you earlier. So it becomes a big chaotic mess in that sense. So to expand a little bit on the scalability of technology or software-driven companies. The great thing there is that there's no marginal cost, right? So if you create a software product or a digital product, you build it once and you can sell it unlimited times, actually. So there's no additional inventory cost or additional cost of creating that specific product. And that's what originates into a lot of scalability from the product, but also from the channel side. And that's very different from a restaurant, for example, where with every new product that you sell, you actually have marginal cost, but also operational cost. And the technology part is part of the operational cost. Obviously, there is a slight increase as well when you are a smaller company than a bigger company. But if you manage the stack well, it flattens out, and which I'll show you in a cost table as well. But before that, I want to show you 3 examples of companies that are doing that well. Well, Apple is obviously the most well-known example here. They have a complete ecosystem that almost locks you in, and it's very hard to get out. A part of that's positive or negative. They sell software, but they also sell a software-driven part of their business. So from a purely software perspective, a digital product is iCloud, for example, distributed via the App Store. A new service is called Apple Fitness, for example, which you purchase via your Apple TV device. So digital product, but also digital channel. And then the software-driven part of their business is obviously the physical things that they make, like an iPhone or a MacBook. You can either buy that via their own direct channels or via indirect channels, like Amazon. Another example is GoPro, right? They sell these mobile cameras that you see here on the bottom right. They don't just sell the physical product via a digital channel, but they also offer digital services around that. And I think that's a very important differentiator, right? So the more services, the more value add in that sense. It's not just about the physical product anymore that you sell, but it's also about the service and experience that you provide around it. Otherwise, it becomes a commodity quite fast. And in that sense, when you buy a Hero 12 camera, you can actually include a subscription to get all the benefits that you see here on the slide. Well, if you think this is only for very large companies, that's not really true. I also have an example of a company that we've worked with in the past as well. It's called Spinoza. They provide a very exclusive and immersive experience online and offline. So they, from the software side or from the content side, they offer certain digital products, but they're also sold via digital channels. So, for example, when you download their app, you can actually subscribe to a video series that helps you use their products better. That's distributed via the App Store. But also within the app, you can actually buy specific training guides on how to use their products or how to become a guide, for example. This is all very scalable type of revenue because it's all a digital product that they create once, but then can sell endlessly without any additional marginal cost. And they combine that with actual physical products, like the mood supplements you see here and on the bottom right as well. So those are physical products, but they are sold via their digital channel, namely their website. All right, so that brings me to the choice that you actually have, the choice as a company. Apart from if you take the digital age series in that sense, there's quite a few examples already of companies that I'm afraid there's more companies, more examples of companies that didn't make this transformation than the ones that did well. And I think one of the best examples that I could give you is Netflix, and on the other side is Kodak, right? So I think the companies that realize the importance of technology in this sense is that they don't treat technology investments as mere expenses, but actually look at them as strategic levers for achieving their business objectives. However, as I mentioned, technology itself should never be a goal. It's more what it can do for your company in achieving the business objectives. I think a great example here is Netflix. Maybe not a lot of people know that, but Netflix actually originated as a software-driven e-commerce company. So they, via their website, they enabled you to create a list of movies that you wanted to watch, and you actually got a DVD delivered at your mailbox. Which is a very different thing that they now have, right? So they actually moved from a software-driven company that actually had physical products, as in DVDs, and they moved to a fully software-driven business model, which is now everybody knows them as a streaming service, but that's definitely not how they started. So yeah, I think that's one of the key messages I would like to relay as well, is that technology decision making is often now considered as something very operational that the IT guy does in the basement. We strongly believe that it needs to move from the basement to the boardroom, since your business depends on it, from a future perspective, but also from a new revenue perspective. And another important point to that is that often we see that technology is being treated as a project, right? So we'll complete this migration, or we'll do this project and it's done. Well, I'm afraid that I have news for you. Your technology stack is not a static thing, and will never be done. It's a continuous, ongoing process that requires maintenance and focus, especially because your company so much depends on it. And I think that's another insight I had as well, is that many companies don't really realize it, but every company has a technology stack. The technology stack is the sum of all your software, and this software enables you to operate your business and provide value to your customers. So I think that's an important message, that across the phases that you see here, the requirements will change, but it's never done. And it's also often a big part of frustration for executives. And then if you map these phases across a table like this is the table I mentioned when I said that the cost will flatten out. So what we've seen from smaller companies, that actually a bigger chunk of their revenue goes to technology investment, because they need to get everything up and running. They need to have a proper, well-integrated stack. But later, you actually see that the total cost obviously is bigger, but the percentage of your revenue lowers, and it stabilizes as well. And there's this interesting piece of research done by Forrester and the National Retail Foundation, and they calculated that on average, consumer retail companies, they spend 3.3% of their total revenue on technology. So maybe that provides you with an interesting benchmark for yourself as well. Then I think a very important thing that I would like to start with is, what is the promise that technology should actually give to your company. I think there's sort of 4 areas that I wanted to point out. Obviously, it's the customer experience. So that's where the digital channels like personalization, data analysis comes in. So if your website is down, if your checkout is down, then the whole customer experience gets affected, and it's a great way to actually increase conversion in that sense as well. Operational excellence, management insights, and growth potential. These are all things that drive the strategic levers that the technology should actually give to your company. This is an extended view of that. So I think one of the important things when discussing and making the decisions around technology expenses, these are the things you should keep in mind, right? So our is technology actually providing my company with these things? If not, then you should divest or not increase this expansion on it. So efficiency, it should enhance the customer experience, and it provide you with data-driven decision making. I think these three are the basis of it, and then if the rest is done well, it can also be extended with the market reach, innovation, obviously security. It can provide you with competitive advantage as well if you have this better sorted than your competitors. And if managed well, it also provides you with the scalability and flexibility you need to deliver on your business ambitions. And as I mentioned in the Netflix example, I think the future-proofing your business is a very big part of it as well. Netflix is on the positive side of this. Kodak, who actually invented the digital camera, they're not here anymore, or in a very small version of what they used to be. And I think that's also why one of the reasons that they didn't take their technology very serious in their business strategy in that sense. Okay, then for the more financial part of this, how to calculate your technology, the total cost of your ownership, the total cost of ownership for technology. It has multiple components. So the next slide is quite detailed. Everybody that attends this webinar will also receive the slides, so don't worry about that. You can actually create this into a table as well. But they're high level. There are 6 different areas where what add up to the technology expenses. So there's an initial part of it, so to get it actually up and running, so hardware and software, in terms of expenses or purchasing these specific things, and also the implementation of integration of your technology stack. So that's the main thing to keep it get it up and running. Then B is basically the operational part of it, so how to keep it up and running is in terms of hosting. Most software applications today are offered in a subscription form, so that's the second part there. Then you have payment processing as well, so for transactions. Obviously, you need some technical support if you don't have an internal tech team. Maintenance. Don't forget about training as well. So the digital maturity is a very important part of being competitive, really using this as a competitive advantage, combined with the monitoring as well. So DevOps is how it's often called. So you need to support and proactive monitoring of your technology stack, that if something goes wrong, there's a team available to fix it as well. And preferably that's very proactive. And then also you should consider some indirect costs as well. So what is actually going to be the cost of when we experience some downtime? Are we compliant in terms of GDPR, for example? And other opportunity costs there as well. And then lastly is when you don't spend enough time and focus on maintaining the technology stack, it's almost inevitable that you will also be decommissioning parts of it. So I think these 6 areas will give you a bit more understanding of how to manage the cost for your technology stack and all the expenses within the company. And a very important part, and that's actually where our company has been named after as well, it's called Conway's Law, is the connection between how your teams operate and how your technology stack is set up. Because what we've seen is that if your organizational structure and your technology stack don't align, the stuff becomes very complicated. And there's basically 3 categories you can differentiate here. The first one is the most important. That's the main topic of today. That's the technology stack. So those are the things that really support your day-to-day operations of your customer journey. Then you have the data stack, which is also important in terms of insights. But if that would go down, it's not a direct customer impact, at least. And then the third category is what we call your tool stack. So these are systems that are not integrated, like your email provider, for example, or an HR system. It's also very annoying or very negative if it doesn't work, but there's no customer impact, at least. So it's important to differentiate between these 3 areas. And then to zoom in onto the first one, as I mentioned, basically, if you align all your teams customer-centric around your customer journey, then it starts from a marketing team to sales, operations, service, engineering, and fulfillment team. These are all the teams that support the journey, and from the first click on Instagram to a parcel on your doorstep. Yeah, these are the teams that to support that process, basically. Then you have other teams like the management team or the supply chain team or the finance team. These are basically supporting the other teams in that. Those work with the systems that we call the tool stack. The customer journey is supported by the technology stack, and that's a very important difference in that sense. And to provide you with the insight of that connection between these two things, as you've heard me say, is that technology provides the infrastructure for growth. Well, that's very much the case, and probably you've experienced that as well, is that for all the strategic initiatives that you have, like opening a new country or selling via a new channel, this always requires software, and it always requires a new adjustment to your technology stack. And that's why we firmly believe that there needs to be a connection there, right? So when we design or set up a technology stack, it's always connected between the marketing team. So the specific systems that the marketing team needs to do their job well, those are within the marketing layer of your stack. Same with service. So a customer service team needs a specific set of systems, for example, to process a refund. Well, that's within the integrated technology stack, that's within the service layer. The next visual I'll show you is a bit detailed, but that's a high-level overview, and I won't go through all the blocks that you see, but it gives you a high-level insight into how these systems will work together. So it starts from the top, where you basically have your marketing layer. So that's where, for example, your customer data platform is, or your marketing automation system, or the systems you need for loyalty. Those are often used and operated by the marketing team. Then you have all the different sales channels, like the web or wholesale or retail. These systems need to be connected, obviously, so you can measure conversion, for example, as well. Then you have your commerce layer, and one interesting thing to point out there is the blocks that you see marked red here is the thing that people often always debate, right? So they always talk about the website. Sure, the website is an important thing, but it's a very small part of your actual technology stack. The reason that it's always mainly debated, it's the only thing that non-technical people can actually see. But underneath, you have your commerce platform, which is often a combination of the cart, a PIM, and an order management system. And nowadays also a CMS, but in more advanced technology stacks, they are actually separated from each other. So this is the combination I wanted to show you, that there's a correlation between how your teams are set up and how you set up your technology stack as well. So to summarize, I think the choice you have as a company is to take technology seriously and move it from the basement to the boardroom. If you don't see that as a strategic importance, just to point it out, if the technology breaks, then there's no revenue being generated. You can forget about your growth initiatives. There's no inventory, there's no dashboard. So it's a quite important part for delivering on your ambition. I think the change that we've a lot of companies seen make already, and that's also something we support them on. If they see that opportunity, if they see that the choice that they have, the choice that they can make, then you get into what change should you actually make. And back to that quote that I often hear from investors: if money is the fuel, technology is the engine. What I aim to do today is to show you a bit more on how you can actually transform the costs into catalysts. The thing here is that leveraging technology expense is basically the linchpin between the operational excellence and the customer experience that I already mentioned. And one other important message here is that I've settled on the idea that IT and technology always gets the blame for specific things, but the main thing is here that you actually to lower your technology expenses, you need less requirements, so you need less requirements of your technology stack in that sense. And the simplest way, or the best way to do that, it's not simple, but it's the best way to do it, is to actually simplify your business and try to streamline more in terms of processes. Because if you do so, then you will also automatically limit the requirements you need from your technology stack. That's what I'll expand a bit more on as well, is that what are tangible things you can actually do other than simplifying your business. And with simplifying your business, I mean things like selling across less countries, or selling across less channels, or making the catalog you actually want to sell smaller, right? So these are all things that are driving business complexity. And if you keep doing those things, then you will also automatically get more requirements of your technology stack. So there's a strong correlation there. And as I mentioned, it's always the software system or the technology stack which causes the frustration, because that's where the cost is, or where the complexity is. However, that's only driven by the business ambition that you have, right? So if you add more complexity, the cost will rise as well. I think that's one of the key things here. So how can you actually save costs on the technology expenses? Well, a great way to start is basically to start with an audit, right? So to get an external expert on board that doesn't have a specific buy-in with stakeholders internally of your company, or from an investor. If you have that report ready, you basically have a better way to understand how your technology and your processes currently operate, and what parts are either redundant or underutilized that you can stop. Another important one is to negotiate with vendors, obviously, since most of the software nowadays is not purchased as a one-off single purchase. It's often a relationship that is continuous with a SaaS provider, so a software as a service provider. Yeah, these contracts can be negotiated. So especially when you're getting more advanced, you can actually get a lot of value out of that as well. Another thing you could consider is outsourcing specific things of the specific parts of your technology stack. What we see a lot of companies work with is just an operational agency that manages your website. But if you remember the visual I showed you with all the different blocks of the technology stack, and that's a very small part of it. And that's also often a frustration for many companies, is that they have 5-6 different partners for all the different systems or different layers of their technology stack. Well, again, that creates a lot of complexity, and I think that's another thing to consider, is to basically outsource either the full stack or at least parts of it, right? So in that way, you don't have to find and hire engineers yourself, for example, or you can also work with this on the marketing side, for example. These are things to consider. Maybe another one to point out here is your way of working. So as I mentioned, the challenge often is not just in the technology, but it's also in the processes and the people. Those are also very important parts of your of your operating model. And in that sense, if you adopt a new way of working, which is more agile, as they call it, so if you break it up into smaller sprints, you can actually be more adaptive to the changing business environment, right? So if you cut that up into quarters, for example, and then adjust your the operation of your team as well, that is often also a great way to actually manage and lower specific development costs, because then on a day by day, on a sprint by sprint basis, you can actually decide, hey, now I have a bit more budget, so I can actually move forward with that feature, and therefore it's also connected to the strategic outsourcing part of it. So for the actual IT spending, if you remember the Gartner report, I won't go through all these things in detail, but these are 10 specific clusters that you can differentiate within IT spending. So that's from the platform itself to the payment processing that happens to, for example, in an e-commerce to run your checkout. From marketing to supply chain, these are all connected to the teams and layers I also mentioned here. And hopefully this is also helpful for you to get a better grip on the overview that you want to create within your company. So this is mainly the goal of this slide, is mainly to support you in getting an overview of the specific clusters that you can differentiate the expenses in. Another important piece of advice based on this direction is to review your technology stack for buy or build decisions. And that is often something that has originated from a legacy standpoint, right? So if you remember that first visual, going from chaos to a confident way of operating technology, those are often connected to buy or build decisions. And the painful lesson we've learned in that sense ourselves, but also what we see a lot with our clients, is that they say, or they want to be very unique in certain things. Well, that's great if it's about your brand or about the product that you're actually selling, but please don't be unique in your inventory replenishment processes. These things are best practices. Those are things that you should actually adopt. And a very important thing to remember about software and technology is that the main thing it does, it supports or automates a process. So that basically means that if you buy a piece of software, you need to adopt the process that the software dictates. So that also means that your way of working needs to align with how that process works, and therefore you'll get the best benefit out of the software. If you don't, then you will get frustrated with the software. Yeah, this software doesn't work how I want it to work. That's true, but that's the problem is not in the software. It's that the software, how the software works, is not aligned with how you work within the process of your company, right? So the lesson here is that when you're small, please bend the processes to how the software systems work. When you grow, when you become a bit more, when you become larger as a company, you probably unlock more budget. And as already mentioned, the bigger you get, the bigger the business complexity becomes as well. As in more channels, more countries, bigger catalog, all these different things. And when that happens, you can actually start bending some of the systems to your processes, right? So I think that's a very important principle to remember. And if you break that down into an example, there's basically three ways to look at that. There's three types of technology or types of software within your company. Strategic value is specific software or technology that your company really can't do without, and it really should present you with a competitive advantage as well, right? So that is the type of technology you should always build and never buy. And as an example, I used Uber here. Uber is a software-driven company that actually doesn't really sell software, but they sell taxi rides. And in that sense, an example of something that is of strategic value and that they will always build and never buy is the engine or the software engine that connects riders to drivers. That really makes them unique, and it's not something that you can just buy off the shelf. A part that it's sort of in between, I would say. It's still of very high importance, of core value. So it therefore directly impacts business results via the experience or operations. Those are the things you often extend via an API. So you can buy it. That's also where the composable aspect of a technology stack comes in, and that I'll show you in the next visual as well. This is a bit of a tricky category, but an example here would be the seamless payments in the app, right? So I think a very important part of the experience of Uber is the way you actually pay for it. As in, you just get in a taxi, you get to your destination, you step out, basically, right? So that's been a massive innovation in terms of experience. They obviously don't build or have their own payment service provider. They still use a system like Adyen or like Stripe or like Molly, but they extended it to actually be part of their core value of their experience. And then the last category is the things that I mentioned in terms of your tool stack, right? So those are things that are of utility value. They're very necessary to run your business, but they will never differentiate you. So how you set up your dashboard, for example, or how you run your finance or your financial accounting system. That's all of utility value, right? So those things you always buy and you should never build in that sense, or just with some very minimal extending to integrate or connect it to your technology stack, for example. Next visual is fairly complex, so I won't go into it in too much detail, but it does help to understand what are the three directions that you have. The thing to look out for is what you see here on the bottom left. So this is the categorization of strategic, core, and utility. And I made this a bit extreme to make my point a bit more clear. In the first option, where there's a very commerce-led type of e-commerce company, and what I mean by that is that they have a very functional product and there's not much content or community or other experience built around it. So you just have a product and you want to sell that in the simplest and fastest way. That's basically where a commerce-led technology stack comes in. I would say 0% strategic, right? So it's just utility value. You just buy a commerce platform off the shelf. You integrate your content, you integrate your master data, and you're up and running. So that's a very simple way of running a business. Big benefit here is that you bring a lot of speed to market at low complexity. So sometimes it's labeled, especially by agencies, that this is a negative thing. Not at all. However, you need to be aware that you can't use too much business complexity, as in multiple channels, very big requirements around the experience. You need to keep your business simple as well. Then this stack will work really well for you. Then the thing in the middle, and you see there already, it's 10% strategic. So there are a few certain things that make your experience specific. like a quiz that you have on your website, for example, right? This is a complex thing to build. It's not something standard you can buy off the shelf. So therefore, it makes it strategic to the things that you try to sell. Because you want to learn more about a customer with that quiz, for example. Well, that's an example of where the experience takes over. So there's a part of the stack that is actually should be built and not be bought. And then the third option, and I will keep that light, but that's basically where you have full flexibility and you have a fully composable technology stack from the front end and from the back end. And then what you see happening there in the percentages is that the amount of strategic and the amount of core technology actually grows, right? So you will extend more around the APIs that you buy. However, much of this complexity then goes within the middle layer or the integration platform of the technology stack. So that is something to be aware of, and those are sort of the three, main options that you would have when setting this up. And then the final piece of it, the next piece of advice I'd like to share is a way to actually simplify our technology stack as well. These are the 6 points on how we design a technology stack. What you've heard me mention quite a few times already is the complexity of your business. Obviously, it's about the revenue size that can support a specific complexity of your stack. It's about the ambition. It's about the digital maturity of the team, the budget you're willing to spend, and specific current systems that are already in the stack. And that stack is then compiled in the way that I already explained. So the technology stack is basically the sum of all your software, and it's a bit like building a house. So it consists of a specific architecture, and in terms of the technology expenses, it really helps to categorize your P&L in that sense, in a similar way, right? So the expenses that go into the technology stack, you can categorize them across these 3 high-level areas. So technology stack, data stack, and tool stack. But then within your technology stack, you can actually say, hey, how much of this expense goes to marketing? How much of this expense goes to sales or to operations? And that gives you a really clear view and a very consistent grip on where potential improvements can be made. Same with the infrastructure part of this, right? So that's the technical software engineering part of this. When your technology stack gets more advanced, that part will actually also grow because you can't afford for any downtime there as well, right? So if you remember the 3 options I just mentioned, from commerce-led to API first, that is also the difference you'll see there. And then the last piece of advice here is basically to find a way to limit the development cost by implementing a composable front end. What we see a lot is that there's a lot of money spent on development hours for custom pages or other custom things on your front end because your marketing team has a new campaign, for example. That's great, and that will deliver a lot of revenue to your company. So you should definitely do that, but not do that with any custom software or no custom landing pages. Our message here is basically that you should build a library of reusable components, almost like digital Lego blocks. And the goal for that is not to actually make your commercial teams autonomous and independent of design and development. And that's what I'll explain in a few slides here as well. So a big improvement in terms of expenses, and that will really bring your development cost down, in addition to the speed to market, is that you actually should align these two. So the capacity of design and development will always be limited. So even if you have enough budget, there's always a constraint there. And the way to visualize that is that it's basically all these different things. When you release a new page, all these different teams and all these different systems need to work in tandem, right? And that really extends the time to market, but it also leads to a lot of cost. So the solution to do that is basically not to build a custom website, but to actually create a design system in your code. And that consists of a lot of different UI components that you can reuse, right? So the same component can be used on your homepage, but also on a specific landing page. And in that way, if you have this library, your commercial team, so your marketing team, for example, they can just compile the landing page that they need for this new campaign, select the components they need from the library and put them online via the content management system. And in that way, you basically decouple these different processes. It's a one-off investment in building up that library, but there's a lot of great tools now available as well to speed that up. And in that way, you sort of hit two birds with one stone, because you save a lot of costs from an operational standpoint as well, and it really helps with speed to market as well. So I think it helps in two ways. To make that a bit more tangible, a page like this would be otherwise fully designed and created by a UX designer, a UI designer, content creator, front-end developer, all these people you want to have out of the process. So you basically build it once, and then you can continuously reuse it for all the different pages. All right, we're almost at the end. So to conclude, these are the three tangible pieces of advice that we would like to share. In terms of system selection, always be aware that you first buy and extend before you actually custom build anything. The great thing about the modern state of technology is that it allows you to do so as well. So there are a lot of great systems and APIs available that that don't require a lot of custom development anymore. And in terms of your technology stack, always try to simplify processes first before implementing in a technology stack. Sure, you can always blame the technology people, but it's often simpler to look at the processes or the people. Is there a different way of working? Is there a different process that we could do before actually saying, hey, I need this custom thing within my technology stack? That will also require some push. That will also give you some pushback in that sense, right? So be aware that there's always a correlation there. Then in the terms of development cost, a way to really get a grip on things is to not build a single website anymore, but create a reusable system of these different assets. Again, it's a one-off investment upfront, but then later you will really benefit from it in terms of speed of market, but also in terms of lower development cost. So for me, the conclusion here, and I hope I explained that in the right way, is that technology investment shouldn't be seen as merely expenses, but if done well, they are strategic levers to your business, and that's also one of the visuals I showed you with those blocks. And to reiterate on that again, is that the only thing that software really does, it automates a process. So if you want to better understand how a piece of software works, or it will work for your business, start by mapping out that process. So what is that customer journey, or what are the requirements that we actually have? How does our current process work, and does that align with how this software actually works? If so, then you can buy it. If not, you need to build something. That's sort of the simple thing here. And another key point here is to align your technology investments with your company strategy, with your digital maturity, but also with your business complexity. So a lot of the requirements are driven by that complexity. So if there's an opportunity to simplify things from a business standpoint, please do that first. And if you are able to simplify your business and processes, then you will also be able to lower the requirements. So, for example, is there a way to not go headless now yet, because we can do more within the simpler monolithic stack? First do that, and then get to a level where you actually need that complexity and sophistication. And in making all these decisions, it really helps to move the technology decision making from the basement to the boardroom. And I hope I have shown you that as well. That your business depends on it, so it makes sense to that extent. To close off on how we can help you to do that. How I often explain what we do, and I think the shortest pitch I could give is that we serve as your on-demand CTO. And what our customers value is that we are often seen as independent expert who have done it before. We've experienced the pain. We've been in your shoes. So in that sense, we love to contribute and help out. And we often serve as that trusted partner to bridge the gap between the business and technology strategy, which is different from often what an operational agency does. We can really relate to the ambitions that either an investment or the executive team has. And I think another important point to point out here is that we are technology agnostic or vendor agnostic, and we always take an end-to-end approach to your technology stack, not looking at one system, but how does it work for your entire business end-to-end. How we do that is by first doing an audit. So we help you understand what the challenges are within the current technology stack, or what are the challenges within the current way how you operate your business or your digital operations. And based on that, we can actually advise you on these 4 areas, right? So strategy, data, technology, or how you set up your teams. And if we have that clear, we can also help with building or actually solving some of the issues. All right, that was it from my side. So let me zoom in here and see if there's any specific questions popping up already. No, not ready. So that's great. I'll share the video over email as well, and also will prepare a transcript of this video as well. So thanks a lot for attending, and see you next time.